So you've got yourself an action camera, but you're wondering how to get the most out of it. Well, that's exactly what this mini-series is all about. We've looked at some of the mistakes to avoid, some of the more creative shots you can get as well, but today we're talking about accessories, specifically which ones are worth it for recording yourself on the bike. So stick with me as I go through the accessories that I've found most valuable after, recording motorcycle rides for the past 5 or 10 years, and I'll also tell you how to get the best out of them. But before we get started, a massive thanks to DJI for supporting this series. And if you do like the look of any of the products that I'm using in this video, there's a link down in the description where you can find out more. Now, the first thing that I'd absolutely advise you to get hold of is an external microphone like this sort of lav mic or lapel mic, because you're going to find that valuable whether you want to capture your voice for vlogs, but also if you want to capture the sound of the bike. You see, although the built-in microphones on most modern-day action cameras are pretty good, you just can't fundamentally get around the fact that if they're positioned on your chin or on the bike out in the wind, you're not really going to be able to hear much beyond said wind. But look, if you get a hold of an external microphone, all of those problems are solved, because you can either stick it inside your lid, like I say, or under the seat or in your pocket or something like that, where it will be able to pick up some of the desired sound without getting blasted by the wind. Now, there's plenty of options for this. You can get some fairly affordable ones on Amazon and the like, and those will do the job okay. But if I had one piece of advice for shopping for a mic for recording motorcycle rides, it would be to look for something that's got a high SPL or sound pressure level. That's effectively the rating of how much volume it can handle. And so something that can't handle a high SPL, especially when you've got it enclosed in your helmet, it's going to sound distorted and it's going to clip a lot, and that's not going to be very pleasant to watch. On the flip side, for example, this Sennheiser mic, it is a little bit more expensive, in fact quite a lot more expensive, but if you're looking for the best possible audio quality, it's certainly worth it, because this sort of mic is built for on the stage, for example, where people are singing like properly loud, and so it can pretty much take whatever you throw at it, and that's going to give you the best possible results. Now, once you've chosen which microphone you're going to use, you're going to need a way to get it recorded or into the camera, and there are basically 3 options. One is the microphone adapter that you can get for the likes of the DJI Osmo Action cameras, and this basically replaces the door on the side and plugs into the USB-C socket, but also gives you a little microphone jack on the end there, which basically makes it super convenient. This is probably the best setup for capturing off-the-cuff stuff when you're out on the road, because you just hit record and both the visuals and audio are being recorded together, so there's no need to sort out an external recorder. And then when you get to the edit as well, it's already synced up, so it's just there in one single file. The only downside is perhaps the preamp isn't the best quality in these cameras, so you've certainly got to make sure you've got the gain turned down to stop it clipping, and you're probably not going to get the best of the best in terms of audio quality. And also, it's not going to be waterproof either, because you've replaced the waterproof door there. So if you're shooting in the dry, perfectly fine. If you're shooting in the wet, possibly look at one of the other solutions and just run it separately to the camera fully waterproofed up. Now, in that scenario, you could consider a wireless mic like this DJI mic, which pairs directly with the camera. You can also pair this with, for example, your phone if you wanted to do other sorts of videos. And so yeah, you could stick this inside your lid, or I think maybe run a high SPL lav mic in the lid and then store this in your jacket or something like that, because I don't believe the mic that's built into these is quite as good at handling those high volumes as something that's really built for the job. Again, super convenient because it's going to record directly to the camera. Also, it records on here as well, so if you do have any interference, you can always grab the backup file off the transmitter. And the only downside, I suppose, versus the wired mic is, well, firstly having something else to charge, but also if you've got it in your jacket, you kind of want to check sometimes that it's actually switched on and paired with the camera, and so it doesn't quite have that convenience for the quick stuff when you're out on the road. Now, perhaps the least convenient, but the one I actually use the most, is an external sound recorder like this Zoom F2, just because I'm doing this as a job. And so I'm going for the best possible sound quality, and this is where you'll get it. One of the great things about a recorder like this is it shoots with a format called 32-bit float, and it's basically impossible for it to be too loud. It won't clip or anything. And also, you know, it's a dedicated device built for good sound quality, and so that's what you get with this. There's a noticeable difference between if you use the wireless mic or the built-in adapter. On the downside though, it's another expense. Again, it's another thing to make sure it's charged. Zero spontaneity as well, because you've got to set this recording when you set the camera going, so that usually involves pulling over and doing so. And with this one, it's a separate file that you have to sync with the camera when you're in the edit, and so you've got to make sure they're lined up. Also, I guess it's another file to lose if you do have problems managing your files. But yeah, in the quest for quality, I think it's worth it. Really, which one I'm going to use on a given day depends on the format of the day or what kind of video I'm planning on making. If it's scripted and planned out, I'll probably use this. Whereas if I'm on a group ride, like a press day, where I'm not going to be able to pull over and set it recording, I need something more spontaneous, like I say, so I'll probably use one of the other two. Right, next up, mounts, and I think the first one that you're probably going to want to get sorted out is the chin mount, because that first person point of view kind of shot is pretty much the bread and butter of most motorcycle content. It's great because it allows you to illustrate what you're talking about pretty much all the time. Although I will say, you know, you don't feel like you have to fall back on it constantly. That's exactly why I made the last video, which shows you some other creative angles that you can use to make your content a bit more visually varied and interesting. Still, it is handy to have this one in the bag because, of course, it's something that you can use a lot. And there's a few different ways that you can achieve this one. Now, the most basic is a regular curved kind of sticky mount, but you do have to find a similar enough surface on the helmet in order to kind of match the curve to get good adhesion. And that normally means using a bit of a mess of different adapters and arms to get the camera positioned out in the front. Then you've got kind of universal chin mounts. So I've ordered one off Amazon in the past. There's also one on one of my other helmets from Motorads. And these are decent, especially if you don't want to shell out for, you know, something bespoke. Although again, it will possibly depend on the shape of the helmet. Something very modern and angular with lots of details, for example, might be a touch more difficult to get it to fit. My preference, if you've got the budget then, is a 3D printed one like this from chinmounts.com, which is specific to your make and model of helmet, because in my opinion, it looks the neatest and also feels super secure. I've never had one of these come off. Still, like I say, not everyone's doing this for a job, and so not everybody will want to shell out for one of those. And also, you know, every time you get a different helmet, you're gonna have to get a different one. So potentially if you're running a lot of helmets or swap them fairly frequently, then this is not ideal. But between those different options, you know, it is possible for different budgets, different styles of helmets to find a solution. Now, other than that, there are so many options for clamps and different styles out there, but the one that I come back to using pretty much all the time is this sort of double ball mount with a clamp on the end that comes, I think, as part of the DJI motorcycle bundle. Firstly, you can obviously clamp it around the handlebars, so you've got that selfie view, which I use very frequently as well. But also there are plenty of other places you can stick it, like on the bar end and point the camera at the bike, for example, to get a couple of different more creative shots. Although, of course, with any of these different mounting positions, you want to be super sure that it's not going to slip off. And there's even plenty of other places if you look around the bike, like on the frame if it's tubular, or on the, you know, foot peg hangers, that just allows you to really mix it up. Now, like I say, you do have to be very careful with mounting your cameras, although I'd be lying if I said that I've never had one slip off when I've been trying to get those slightly more unusual or interesting angles. So with that in mind, I'd thoroughly recommend a cage, which is going to help to protect the camera. And this one comes in the box with the Osmo Action 5 and the 4 as well, so it comes as standard. So yeah, it just slips in the front. Not only does that mean the camera's nice and safe, it's going to give it that extra level of protection. On the back, it gives it a bit of a buffer. Certainly the corners as well are going to be a lot more protected. But also with this one, it does give you one of the magnetic clips on the side of the case, and so even if you never drop your camera, you can still get value from it because it allows you to quickly detach the camera, flip it vertically, and that's going to give you a portrait shot, which is more usable, let's say, for social media like Instagram or TikTok. If you're making a lot of content, or if you're off on a longer trip where you're going to be shooting a lot of footage, then batteries do become quite a big concern. But one of my favorite accessories, certainly for these DJIs anyway, is this triple battery pack, which allows you to store them in here and then also charge them up together with just one USB-C port. So not only does that mean easier charging because you're not plugging individual cameras in and swapping the batteries to get all three charged up, but also it's a really nice convenient form factor in which to stick them in your bag or carry them around with you. I've actually got two of these, so I've always got one on charge, and then whenever I'm going out, I just take the old one and plug it in and take the fresh one and stick that in my bag. And so yeah, it means I rarely ever run out of battery, if ever. And not only that, but it also doubles up as a power bank. So if you've got something that charges over USB-C, like your phone, your Cardo, or another camera, something like that, then if it does run out, you can plug it in with a short USB-C and stick it in your backpack, and then it's charging up while you're riding round. Now, these next three you might not consider to be absolute essentials, but they're just kind of optional things to make your action camera use go that little bit further. This one is the selfie stick, which, this one comes from DJI as well. And so if you do want to make kind of vloggy footage off the bike, for example, if you're doing a road trip, then this is a nice way to do it and get an extra bit of reach. And they also sell a shorter kind of vlog stick, which, even that gives you enough reach with a very wide lens, but also the vlog handle has a battery built in so you can keep shooting for longer. Now, one thing that can be a little bit difficult about mounting the camera on your chin or your chest is that it's not always that obvious as to whether you've actually hit record or not, and it can be rather upsetting to get back from a shoot and realize that most of the good footage is missing. That, though, is exactly where this little puppy comes in. This is the GPS remote, and so you can just mount this on the bars somewhere and get a really good and obvious view as to whether your camera is actually running. The other thing it does is collects GPS data and writes it to the video file or writes it alongside it. And so you can use the DJI Mimo app to actually overlay some of that data onto your video files. Now, it's not something you probably use all the time for like long form YouTube, for example, but if you did want to make some exciting little clips, or maybe on track day footage, then it is another handy little tool. Number 9 is realistically probably more so only for the aesthetically minded or the camera buff, but it's these ND filters, or neutral density filters, I believe. And basically they're like little sunglasses for the camera in that they let in less light. That means you can use a longer shutter speed, which is the amount of time that the camera is capturing light for each frame. And that means that you're going to get more motion blur, which does look a little more cinematic, let's say, and also kind of helps to convey the sensation of speed. So that's it. Many ways to kind of tailor your action camera to the sort of stuff that you like to shoot. And so once again, a massive thanks to DJI for supporting this little mini series. I've really enjoyed shooting it, and there are links in the description to some of their products that you'll see in this video, which you can find out more about and pick one up. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle tech, along with news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching this one, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.